Well, they do say better late than never, don't they, really? And here we are on a Friday afternoon. It's International Women's Day, and we've got a man in the host chair, and it's all gone terribly wrong. So we did arrive a little late on parade, so apologies for that. Actually, nothing to do with gender, everything to do with technology as it happened today. But you're most welcome to join us. Episode 230 today of Level Up, of course, 60 minutes. Just shy of that, of live Q&A, where your questions really do drive the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, then of course you can find out so much more about what APMG International does in our channel. So do give the video a like and subscribe to find out all of that good stuff. Shanice and Blanche today are both over in the social chat. So do introduce yourselves online to them and mention your name, of course, and the city from where you're joining. They will post some links so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. Now, if your questions are selected, then your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show, and quite right too. So do get those questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Organisations are often criticised when their decision makers have a little too much in common, as the choices that they can make can, on occasion, fall short of true comprehension of the key issues. Forbes published research back in 2017 that identified when faced with challenging decisions, all male teams made the best choice out of the tricky options only 58% of the time. Who would have thought it? Well, whilst this can rise actually as high as 87% of the time, when you have gender, age, and geographically diverse teams facing the same challenges. So that's a massive improvement, isn't it? From 58% up to 87% success rate. So how do we deliver on the promise of diversity, equity, quality, inclusion in our own workplaces? Helping us make better choices are a brilliant panel. So let's jump straight in and meet them all. Cindy Hancock is an international trainer and instructional designer at Phlox Training over in South Africa. Her leading edge instructional design supports a wide range of clients, including people like the United Nations and the Non-Violence Project Foundation. A long-term supporter of Level Up, it's an absolute delight to welcome her to the panel today. Welcome, Cindy. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sarah Hildrey joins today, a familiar face, of course. She is the business owner of two organisations now, Carpe, Omnia Training, and of course, CUPE International. Her award-winning work includes a wide range of clients across the UK and internationally, and she leads a growing team of very talented individuals who are committed to the purpose of delivering outstanding education and training services. Welcome back to Level Up, Sarah.
Hi, really happy to be back again and looking forward to this discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Malini Jayaganesh is a strategic advisor and coach over at the ITSM Hub, and she's also Director Emeritus for the Business Relationship Management Institute. With a lifelong purpose to elevate others, Malini has championed diversity and inclusion throughout her professional career as the co-chair of the Women of Colour Network at the Department of Education, and as an active ally for the Indigenous people in Australia, where she lives. Welcome back to Level Up, Malini.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. I think it's wonderful that in the age of artificial intelligence, we can focus on a topic that is so close to humanity.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much. And also wonderful that we can come together in this way, enabled by technology, but absolutely 100% human at the same time. So thank you, Marlene. Ian Clark is Director at Fox IT Service Management over in South Africa, and he focuses on delivering service management education, consulting and coaching services, a strong contributor to the service management community, and regularly contributes to membership organisations, meetups, and has also been a contributing author as well. Welcome back to Level Up, Ian. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick, and happy International Women's Day to everybody out there and the ladies on the panel.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Ian. Mart Rovers completes our expert panel today. He is, of course, the president at INTERPROM and a regular contributor here on Level Up across the US and Europe. INTERPROM deliver a range of coaching, advisory and training services to their clients, leveraging emerging and leading practice to help give their customers a truly competitive edge. Welcome back to Level Up, Mark. Great to see you again.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being back again. Happy International Women's Day, everybody. I found this quote. I thought it was appropriate to kick off the show that says, "We will know that inclusive education has really become embedded in our culture when the term becomes obsolete."
There you go, actually. It's a good litmus test, isn't it? When it becomes obsolete, when the term becomes obsolete, you know that you've actually managed to achieve it. So thank you very much indeed. Now, our question master for today is Charlotte Miller. She's joining us from the Thames Valley here in the UK. Welcome back, Charlotte. How's your week been?
It's been a really good week. It's been really sunny here. Frosty starts, but sunny, and it's been good. Looking forward to today's show.
Excellent. Spring is definitely in the air, I think. So on that note, I can see lots of people joining online. So brilliant to have you all as part of the team today. So welcome one and all. And Charlotte, I think we should jump straight in and let's put our first question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our first question is from Lizelle Nude. Which strategies can help company culture connected and healthy with more people engaging in the workplace?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Sarah, why don't you start us off and then we'll go to Cindy.
So a couple of techniques that I like to kind of use and encourage people to do to encourage this is the holding an all hands on deck kind of meetings. So you're really kind of encouraging everybody to give across their different opinions, techniques. And also the other is the best idea wins way of looking at things, which again really celebrates the fact that it's very much about literally what it says, the best idea wins, as opposed to potentially the people coming up with those ideas. And again, by doing that, it will encourage the different kind of people being able to be part of those kind of decision making and feel that they've got the freedom to kind of come up with those ideas as well. And I'll pass over to, sorry, go on, Nick.
No, I really like that idea of depersonalizing the idea, decoupling the idea from the contributor, who perhaps put the idea into the meeting, because that gives you the chance to be able to evaluate things on a more, kind of level playing field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason, because it really does kind of help with that inclusivity of everybody feeling that it doesn't matter exactly, like you said, who came up with the idea, it will be on the best idea.
Fabulous. Thank you very much indeed. Great start, Sarah. Thank you. Cindy, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Malini.
Thank you so much. And I love what you said there. It's all about inclusivity at the end of the day. So I do believe that maintaining a connected and healthy company culture while more people engage virtually in the workspace these days does require deliberate strategies for us to be able to foster collaboration and a sense of belonging to the remote employees. So ways we can do that is definitely looking at promoting well-being and looking at mental health, providing resources of support for remote employees. And also, I do think that leadership visibility and accessibility is another strategy that we can incorporate as, leading by regularly engaging with remote employees, being responsive to their needs, their concerns, really leaning in and listening to what they have to say. And, even continuous feedback and evaluation is a great strategy to have where we can solicit feedback from our remote employees.
That's really excellent. Yeah, thank you very much, Cindy. I like that phrase, lean in and listen. I'm paraphrasing slightly. But that's something very important, especially when you have distributed teams. We do need to do that, don't we? We need to make a proactive step to lean in and genuinely listen to the thoughts and ideas of others around the world. So thank you very much indeed, Cindy. Malini, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Mart.
Cindy, thank you so much for bringing the focus on mental health and well-being. This is often overlooked. And Lizel, to your question, I'm going to take a slightly different tangent to it. The statistics are showing that some of the people who are reluctant to return to the office and who are actually opting to work more in a remote way are people who actually belong to marginalized cohorts. So that sort of disengagement then sort of, that they have with that they find in their workplace, that those non-inclusive behaviors actually lead them to sort of hide behind remote working and virtual working. So I think if you're trying to build a culture of inclusivity, then you have to consciously and very deliberately reach out to make everyone feel included. And I'm sure over the rest of this hour, we'll be talking about different ways to do that. But look at, try not to allow people to just fall through the cracks just because they're not physically visible.
Yeah, indeed. And it's part even of the techniques, isn't it, for working remotely? We spend a great deal of our lives working with others, but not in the same space, physical space, if you like, but connected via the long corridor that is the internet, if you like. And having that presence, having, the cameras on and having that feeling of safety, creating the safe spaces is such a key enabler to be able to have people feel confident enough to be able to share their opinions and their ideas openly. Thank you very much, Malini. Really good thinking. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to it.
And thank you for stealing my answer, and Nick, I appreciate that. I was going to say, indeed, turn on your cameras, don't hide. Especially these days. One thing that came out of COVID, we turned on our cameras. But let's build on that and say, if we do meet, I always recommend that Jeff Bezos' pizza model. Don't have more than 5 or 9 people in a meeting, so everybody gets a chance to chime in and be heard, and was able to contribute. I think that's another one to consider, at least.
It's certainly true, isn't it? Sometimes it's inevitable that you have large numbers of people tuning in to hear a key message, perhaps, so that everybody hears it at the same time. But how that message is then digested and considered and discussed, so much better, isn't it, when you're in smaller groups, to be able to feel that you can say what's on your mind, and that your colleagues around you will understand the context in which you are saying that. So I agree with that. Thank you very much indeed, Mart. And Ian, final thoughts on this one?
Thanks, Nick. It's a very interesting question. And I actually had a conversation today with a lady from one of our clients, and they've created what I could best describe as a circular organization. So, the whole, there are no leaders in the triangle at the top. It's essentially a group or a team of people, working in a very agile environment who use each other's strengths and the diversity within the team to bring, various benefits on a daily basis. And the one thing that I do want to say is they have a daily online check-in as a team to discuss, things that are working well, things that are not working well. They are remote, and they also have one-on-one check-ins. So the various leaders in various conversations will have one-on-one check-ins with various people to ensure that they're engaged, and if there are any issues, they can be addressed. So that was an interesting example that literally I had a conversation today.
And it's something which is evolving practice all of the time, isn't it? And I think it's great when you do pick these things up. My earlier career as a consultant, I think I learned probably more from the client than the client learned from me some days. And it was
Absolutely.
that feeling of being engaged with people and helping them work through the problem that delivered the value overall, if that made sense. So thank you very much indeed, Ian. And what a great question, Lizelle, to start the show off with. So thank you so much for submitting it. It's really brilliant. Let's jump over into the social chat and kind of see who's joining us today. Blanche joins us online. Welcome, Blanche. Blanche is a new member of the APMG team, tuning in from Oxford today here in the south of the UK. So welcome, Blanche. Great to have you online today. And Carrick joins from Cannock, Staffordshire, in the UK. Brilliant to have you online today, Carrick. Thank you very much indeed for joining in. It's great to see you online today. And Victoria joins us over from the USA, complete with a little flag. Thank you, Victoria. I like that. I like the colour in that emoji. That's brilliant. Not too sure whereabouts you are in the US, East Coast, West Coast, somewhere in the middle, but you're most welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining. And Boleslaw, of course, a regular contributor, top contributor, I would say, actually, from the Level Up audience at the moment. Greetings from Poland. From Warsaw today. So thank you very much indeed for joining, Boleslaw. And also to everybody who's wishing everybody else a happy International Women's Day. Indeed it is. I've seen some fantastic content today posted online celebrating women in leadership positions and really inspiring others actually to elevate our performances throughout. So very good. Let's move on then, if we can, Charlotte, and we'll take our next question to the panel.
Thanks, Nick. Our next question is from Forrest Will. Forrest asks, what do you see are the key components of an exclusive workplace culture in 2024 and going forward?
Okay, let's mix it up a little bit. Malini, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Cindy.
I think the most critical thing is to have strong leadership commitment, because in a lot of organizations, I should say strong and sustained leadership commitment, because in a lot of organizations, they get there are a lot of grand statements about diversity inclusion. They often have a morning tea to launch, their inclusive culture efforts and so on. And then leadership just seems to step back. And unless there is sustained commitment, demonstrated in regular participation in conversations, leaders actually demonstrating by example, role modeling the right behaviors and so on, nothing's going to change.
Thank you very much indeed. Great advice there. Thank you, Malini. Let's go to Cindy, and then we'll hear from Ian.
Thank you so much. And Malini, I was actually going to say leadership commitment myself, because I do believe senior leaders will definitely, and they do, play a crucial role in driving and sustaining an inclusive workplace culture. What we can also look at is, going the traditional route, having those DEI strategies in place, looking at equitable policies and practices. How will the organization adopt to these policies and promote fairness and equal opportunities for all employees? And this will include addressing biases in recruitment, perhaps, or in the hiring process. Of course, very close to my heart is learning and development. So I do believe that continuous learning and development is another way of where organizations can and will invest in development opportunities to build people's skills and the awareness around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think when we include this and provide this training on unconscious bias, cultural competence, inclusive leadership, maybe even bystander intervention, to foster a more inclusive workplace culture. We live in a world where there's a lot of mobbing and bullying going on, and even in the corporate environment as well. So I think if we reach out and we lean into continuous learning and development, we can strengthen the organization, but also the employees within the organization.
Thank you very much indeed. Absolutely right and proper. And some key topics there, actually, which we may well come back to a little bit later on in the show. So thank you very much indeed, Cindy. Ian, let's hear your thoughts, and then we'll go to Sarah.
Thanks, Nick. I think from my perspective and my experience, the diversity is a big kind of passion of mine, both from an identity and a cognitive perspective. So, neurodiverse, individuals and individuals on various parts of the spectrum, is all part of the conversation of inclusivity. And the thing I see missing the most is just pure awareness and action. So, and the two are also linked. You can't really take meaningful action unless you're informed. And I think both aspects are, I won't say lacking, but they could be vastly improved on, which would in turn obviously make it a more inclusive and diverse, set of people in organisation, and hopefully more inclusive.
Thank you, Ian. That's absolutely great. Sarah, your thoughts on this? What do you see are the key components?
So naturally, the key component I was going to say, was the management capability about developing their self-awareness and their understanding about their own biases, which I think Stephen Covey and his 7 habits is a really good thing to kind of look at to start kind of encouraging that. But I also think we need to understand what an inclusive culture kind of means. And it's not necessarily about striving to ignore the differences between our team members, but rather to think about how we can create the culture where each of those people feel respected and their differences. And I am going to quote Madonna, lover, hater. She is, an inspirational woman. And she very much does say that I am because we are. We all bleed the same colour. We all want to love and be loved. So, I just thought that was a nice little thing with International Women's Day and inclusivity to put in that as well.
Absolutely. Now, Mart Rovers is usually the person with the quotes, all right? He's usually the person with the quotes. But I'm yet to hear him, Sarah. I think your quote from Madonna has trumped Mart Rovers. Okay, so he might come back with something else a little bit later on, so be aware of that. In the meantime, though, Mart, what are your thoughts on the key components for inclusivity as a workplace culture?
I had a backup quote, so I'm just going to throw it in from Karen Salmonson. "We are all different, and that's beautiful," she said. Speaking of which, our talent pool is so much bigger, so much larger if we just embrace that, culture of inclusion. I saw an infographic the other day, and it showed, this expanded talent pool of circles that were all overlapping, and of course combined covered a huge space, and it placed a dot in one of them, as in, collectively, we found the best possible solution compared to all these dots on top of each other where there's no diversity and so on. And then the dot sits somewhere on the outside, as in, you will never find that solution. I think if we can point out those examples, I think we're doing a good job in reminding ourselves inclusion is and diversity is critical.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Couldn't agree more. Now, so much about what we've been speaking about in terms of the key components is actually to encourage managers to do the right thing by their staff, but they often don't know that they're doing something wrong, and they often don't know what it is that they should be doing right, if that makes logical sense to people. One super useful resource that people may want to consider is a new book from Dominic and Laura Ashley Timms. It's an excellent read. It's not too tricky at all in terms of accessibility and readability and so on. And I would thoroughly recommend it to people. It talks about using an approach where you ask more questions instead of managers feeling that they need to know all of the answers. Actually, this encourages us to ask better questions. And based on those better questions, then we're able to frame a better and more informed response. Now, we have a couple of people on the panel who are far more expert in this than I am, but I would really recommend it. And we might come and ask for their thoughts on this topic in a few minutes or so. And in fact, if I may, actually, I will do this pretty much straight away. So, Sarah, I know that you've been, researching and following this concept of Star Notion and how it can transform management within organizations. What are your thoughts on the work of Dominic and Laura Ashley?
I really love it. And I love it so much that, if I'm allowed to say, I'm going to be the first accredited training organisation to be able to deliver this particular new accreditation, which is highly exciting because it's exactly what you said. It will really enhance your capability within your leadership. And it will be relatively quick as well, but it's just really enabling them to take a step back, like Nick said, and to empower those around them to actually have the opportunity to do what they need to do. And we know that people are motivated by that autonomy, that mastery, that purpose. And by leading in this way, it will exactly enable them to do that. So the managers can actually get on, to be honest, with what they should be focusing on and have that noise minimized in their mind to actually focus on the more strategic elements they should be doing. But also it's a win-win because their people will be feeling great because they'll be learning new skills and feeling very much, in control and accountable as well.
Yeah, completely agree. So excellent. Really great question as well. Thank you so much, Forrest, for putting it to the panel. Some great ideas there about practical things that we can all do to make a difference. Straight away, we don't have to wait. There are actions that we can take ourselves as individual contributors, as managers, as leaders of functions and teams, and even at the C-suite level. Very good. Charlotte, if we can, let's move on and take our next question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got our first live question from Carrick Brown. No inclusion without accessibility to empower those closest to problems to find their own solutions. Which behaviours are needed to promote accessibility?
Malini, why don't you start us off? You've had a lot of experience in this.
Carrick, thank you for that wonderful question. And what I think is most important is people should be trained to suspend judgment. Right? In my own experience of trying to promote accessibility and inclusion in organizations, what I've often encountered is, when you put the case to senior leadership, they can often be quite dismissive, until they actually hear about it from other quarters, or they hear of, someone who's done a research study somewhere, and then they have some statistics, and they often don't take people at face value, particularly things that, they hear from marginalized groups. So I think training people in becoming more empathetic and, active listening, so that they actually don't form judgments, but they really try and understand the other person's perspective. I think that's very important.
I think that's very true. And it's a fine balance between differentiating tasks and opportunities so that you can provide accessibility to a range of different people, and being overly presumptuous. Because you can make that mistake. And I'm not suggesting that it's a black and white thing here, that, that there's a right and a wrong. There has to be adaptation. There needs to be reasonable changes made, reasonable accommodation, I think it is. It might even be in statutes in some countries, that phrase, to ensure accessibility, that reasonable accommodations can be made. But I think sometimes we're led by our own bias as to what it is that people are able to achieve. And so that's a very important check, I think, for everybody to kind of just consider that a little bit, and not put a false ceiling in place, if you like, in terms of expectation. Thank you, Marlene. It's great. Some great thinking there. Cindy, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Mart.
Thank you so much. I do think we can also incorporate a behavior of empathy and understanding. Because when we are being empathetic towards the needs of the individuals with diverse backgrounds, I think it's crucial. And I think it's when we understand the challenges that they are facing, we can then really look at how we can overcome these challenges and how we can address them. Something simple as really listening actively to the experiences, to the feedback that the individuals with diverse backgrounds are bringing, really actively seeking out their perspectives, and really look at incorporating their input into the decision-making process. So therefore being adaptable.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think if you can see your own contribution in the solution, that really makes you feel well, it makes you feel proud, doesn't it? You were part of the answer, not just part of the problem, and so therefore it's a positive circle that you begin to make greater contributions and so on. It's when your voice is not heard that I think people after a while get tired and they tend to withdraw a wee bit. So thank you very much.
It's also a way of being adaptable. Being willing to adapt to environments, maybe processes. Adapt our attitudes to accommodate, the needs of different individuals.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Cindy. Mart, your thoughts, then we'll go to Ian.
Something that I've seen in many organizations, actually more than I used to, is the concept of employee resource groups, and where they tend to, have people that have similar interests, connect with each other. To give one name, for example, that I saw recently, an employee resource group that was called Black Forward. And of course, we can all imagine, what the group was for, was trying to promote. But building on that, what I noticed is that the connections that are being formed in those employee resource groups are from people that would otherwise never know about each other. And they meet up, and some of them actually go a step further than getting to know each other. They actually start helping each other. And to build on your earlier comment about the STAR model, the book that you were showing, they start coaching each other. They start helping each other that way. And, talking about inclusion and accessibility, these platforms can be enormously powerful to serve that purpose.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. Thank you very much indeed, Mart. And Ian, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, Mart stole my thunder there. So, I was going to talk about, groups of like-minded individuals, again, going online and sort of networking with each other and other areas of the organization to gain access to additional information, also, obviously transparency, access to resources, to enable people to find their own solutions and recognition as well, as you've mentioned as well. So, I'm very much in tune with Mart, and there's just a few additional things from my side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Carrot, you've got us all thinking. You make an incredible contribution, by the way, online in shaping the quality of the discussion, the debate, Carrot. I'll come back to that in a moment. Malini, you've had some further thoughts.
Thank you, Mark, for mentioning the employee resource groups. I just wanted to share, something from my own experience of leading such a group, in a very large and complex organization. I think such groups are really wonderful, as Mart said, for people to connect with like-minded people, and you have that feeling of support and a safety net, and you can also find mentors within that group, and that's really good. But what can sometimes happen is that the burden of creating a more inclusive workspace by creating awareness and all that actually ends up falling on the resource group rather than the rest of the organization, the leadership, etc., doing what they need to. So I think while employee resource groups are a fantastic idea, that should be one of the things in the mix. You should actually have a broad strategy that includes, training in understanding and identifying and understanding bias. You should have inclusive recruitment practices, and then you can also have other policies and things in place. And employee resource group can be one of the things that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And all practical steps as well for us to be able to consider and to take. Ian, briefly, and then I want to go to the chat.
I was just kind of bouncing off what Malini was saying. I sometimes do really think that it's very much a leadership issue as well, in terms of really enabling the various individuals, hopefully of a diverse nature, to get access to these forums and resources to enable them to be more self-aware and contribute. So I was just popped into my head, and I thought I'd throw it in there.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Don't worry. No, not at all. I think it's a really important thing to be able to do. Now, let's just kind of pop over to the chat a little bit. Eric, first of all, thank you. It was a brilliant question, as ever. Carrick always phrases his questions beautifully. So we really appreciate the efforts that you go to, Carrick. And also praiseworthy of your initial answer, actually, Malini, to the question as put there from him. So that's really great to see. Thank you very much indeed. And I'd also like to shout out to Oliver. Thanks so much, Oliver, for the feedback. We do cover such a range of topics, don't we, on Level Up? From the technical to the management, from business to cybersecurity, from early career folks to how you can become an expert, become recognized as a Royal Chartered professional in your particular discipline. So it's great feedback to get, and we really appreciate you being part of the Level Up community. Each and everybody who is online today, it's your questions that actually shape the show. So do get your questions in, and stay with us to see them read out to the panel. On that note, Charlotte, I can see we've got lots of live questions stacking up, so I guess we should press on.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Our next question is from Oliver Stein, who you've just mentioned. Do you think sparring partners might be a way forward to truly understand different cultures on a more personal level?
Okay, all right. Well, this is an interesting concept, isn't it? How do we actually understand other cultures unless we're able to immerse ourselves, in them? How do we bridge the divide that can be geographic? It may be less based on geography and more based on heritage, perhaps. Who knows? Malini, why don't you start us off with some practical advice? How could we understand, improve our understanding of different cultures?
Actually, Nick, maybe I'm showing, an example of a cultural difference here. I don't quite understand the term sparring partners in the workplace context. It sounds a little violent to me, so let me just go with that. I would say, budding up people from different cultures is a good idea, provided they have been primed to become aware of their biases, their unconscious prejudices, and they've been trained in how to listen actively and be empathetic and so on. Simply putting people together and expecting magic to happen, I don't think that actually works really well. One thing that you have to remember when you do buddy up people from different cultures is that people from different cultures actually tend to think and behave differently. And I don't mean to stereotype cultures here, but just generally in some cultures, like Indian culture in which I grew up, we do not speak until we are spoken to. If there is someone senior in the room, either they're senior to us in experience or in age or, position in the organizational hierarchy. So, you really need to be mindful of these sorts of things before you actually buddy people up.
I agree with that totally. Having worked in Korea for some time, and I as a young consultant, I imagined everybody in the room was agreeing with me, and actually all that was happening was the body language was saying we're still listening. No, it didn't mean agreement at all. And the early career, I was kind of thinking, this is going terribly well. Goodness me, they're hanging on my every word. I haven't even got to the punchline yet. But actually, it was just people being polite. Just being people polite and saying, yes, okay, we're listening to you, Nick. And then at the end, it was, yeah, all right. I think we need to work harder. So thank you very much, Malini. Really good point. I think to Oliver's defense on the concept of kind of sparring, I suppose the metaphor is really about working together, but without anybody getting hurt. If that makes sense. So you're physically kind of engaged and doing things, but you're well protected. So generally, your head's okay. But I agree that I'm not sure visually it's quite what we want to do. So we're stretching things a little bit, Oliver. Sarah, rescue me from this situation. You've got the answer.
I will. Although I've got Rocky in my mind, I have to say. No, I'm teasing. I think Malini, as always, has given a great answer already. But I think along with that is creating that psychological safety is critical, because exactly like she said, you can't expect to put people together and them to naturally just kind of click or embrace each other. So there needs to be that understanding beforehand of that unconditional positive regard that we should all demonstrate to be good human beings. That sense of belonging, and make sure we've created that psychological safety so they know it's that safe space. And I just want to touch upon, I know we've talked about cultural differences, but interestingly, I've done a few with Malini of these panels, and our values are very aligned. Quotes from her grandparents are actually really aligned to mine, even though we're quite culturally different. So I just want to kind of encourage everybody to remember that everybody comes from unique backgrounds and sets of experiences. And it's not necessarily what we'd always assume might be differences, just to kind of put it in there as well.
It's a good point, isn't it? We see the difference, but actually, when you really think about and listen to what's being said, there is more in common than actually there is a difference. So thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Great point. Ian, final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Malini's sentiment with regards to self-awareness. Again, I totally agree that until you're truly self-aware of your beliefs, your biases, etc., it's not a good idea to sparring partners. I'm still kind of chuckling about it. Sorry, but one thing I did see recently, again, at one of our clients, was they've actually gone on a big drive through various psychologists. I think the term is they use. They're actually having sessions with all the staff to make them more aware of their own biases and behaviours, and I thought that was very, very interesting. I've hardly heard of that before as well. So I just thought I'd mention it. I think it's a very positive step forward, in that regard.
Absolutely, and I think helping colleagues develop that self-awareness requires careful handling. And facilitation skills become very important. And it is worthwhile doing lots of research for partners who can come in and help you, who have deep experience, like Cindy, like Malini, like the members of this panel. So if you're in a situation where in your organization you feel this needs, a bit of a shot in the arm, then, consider that, it's always worthwhile to connect on LinkedIn with members of the panel. We do welcome professional connections, and you can find everybody's LinkedIn profile on the APMG International website. So please reach out and make a connection to somebody who's resonated with you today with their responses to the questions, and start your journey to a better future and level up your career in that way. Excellent. Well, thank you very much indeed, Oliver, because I think the phrasing of your question made us all stop and think. We have to be immersed, we have to be actively engaged, but we want to make sure that we do that in a safe space and a safe environment. So really great question. Thank you, Oliver. Charlotte, let's move on. We'll take our next question for the panel, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our next question is another live question. It's from Boleslaw, one of our regular viewers. How can you tell genuine inclusivity from token representation?
Well, this is highly relevant because tokenism, you can find it all of the time. You look on the websites of large organizations, you see the taglines that they use, you read the annual reports and the glossy photographs and so on and so on and so on. And yet, in the behavior that you witness day by day, week by week, month by month, is it really true? And I think people are sophisticated enough to make their own judgments on those things. Let's turn it around the other way. Ian, why don't you start us off on this one, and then we'll hear from Sarah.
Yeah, you stole my thunder as well, Nick. I was just literally going to say it's action. Do you visibly see and hear the changes in the right behaviors, including people, the collaboration? It's, for me, tokenism, I struggle with it immensely. I prefer leading into action. There's the leading in again. Action is the big thing from my side.
Thanks very much indeed. Sarah, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Cindy.
Yeah, I think if you kind of look at the norms and the values of the organisation, so really spend your time and underpin the norms and the values of the culture in the organisation, because that's what will tell you whether it's genuine or whether people are just masks and playing a role. So really kind of see what's the norms and values. Does it feel that they, live and breathe that day in and day out? And also, just regarding, there's a big difference between active and reflective listening, because we can all go like that. We can all, look like we are, but empathetic listening is what we need to do, because that would inspire openness and trust. But look at the norms and values.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you, Sarah. Cindy, your thoughts, and then Malini?
Thank you so much. So when we are differentiating genuine inclusivity from token representation, it can sometimes be challenging. But if we look at a few indicators, for example, the depth of engagement. So genuine inclusivity that really involves meaningful engagement and involvement of individuals from diverse backgrounds in decision-making processes, for example. Really looking for opportunities for diverse voices to contribute to discussions, share ideas, and then shape the outcomes. But also, I think something that is important here to look at is authentic representation. Genuine inclusivity prioritizes authentic representation of diverse perspectives, experiences, identities, rather than tokenizing individuals based on their backgrounds. So I think we need to assess that, and just take a look at some of these indicators to distinguish between the two.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Cindy. Malini, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Mart.
Well, I'm reminded of a metaphor that we have discussed in previous episodes. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being invited to dance, right? And that, I think, is how you tell the difference.
Absolutely. That's a great metaphor to keep in our minds, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed, Malini. Mart, final thoughts?
I'll keep it short. Indeed, that authenticity is a key component to create that safety that is needed.
It really is. And I think, even in the world of advanced artificial intelligence and the way that imagery can be created out of, a short text phrase, we're programmed to spot a fake. And when you meet the human being who's the fake, it doesn't take you long to spot them. It might be a quiet voice inside that's suggesting to you this doesn't feel quite right. But I'm a great believer in listening to that quiet voice. Thank you, Mart. Thank you, panel. And thank you, Boleslaw. Another great question today. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate it. Charlotte, I think if we hurry, we've got time for one last question.
Thanks, Nick. This is a live question from Carrick Brown. Is an inclusive culture needed to meaningfully recruit diverse teams, or do we need diverse teams and equality in the first place to foster inclusive behaviours?
Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Because if you don't already have at least moved from that unconscious incompetence stage, if you like, in relation to this, to one where you are more aware. If you're starting from the premise of ignorance, how on earth can you actually begin to make that difference? Now, that's not to say that any organization is perfect, of course. Sarah, when you're working with people, what are your thoughts on breaking that vicious circle and making some progress?
So I very much feel that when you are recruiting, you want to kind of think about the values of the people you're recruiting. So it's not necessarily actually if you need an inclusive culture to recruit diverse teams, but I would hope the people that are being recruited in actually have those kind of values that you're looking for, which would be part of that. And interesting, I've worked with a big organisation recently that are very, all talking about inclusivity. It's one of their big things, but their recruitment function actually means that certain people can't even get past the interview stage.
Thank you very much.
Leave that with you.
Yeah, absolutely right. Still such a key component, isn't it? Actually meeting people and seeing them kind of eye to eye, if you like, if that makes sense. Thank you very much, Malini, and then Mart.
Carrick, I have, as a woman of color, I've often found myself being the only woman or the only person of color in many workplaces, right? And what I have found is I've had very strong allies, from who are white men or white women, and they've been incredible. So I really think it's more about the attitude and the intention of the people. So I don't think you necessarily need to have diverse teams in the first place in order to foster inclusive behaviors. What you need is people with the right attitude and values first.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed. Mart, final thoughts?
I'll dumb it down a bit. Actions speak to lead to certain behaviors. Behaviors lead to certain culture. I would follow that sequence.
Thank you very much indeed. The essence of it there summed up ably and capably by Mart Rovers. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Wow, what a fantastic set of questions that we've had from everybody today. I think what we're going to have to do, as we started a little bit late, we shouldn't finish late because people have got other appointments to move on to. So we're going to jump to reflections on today's event and walk around the panel. Ian, your thoughts on today, please.
Final thoughts. The long way to go, clearly, out there in the big wide world. But I totally agree with the right people with the right attitude and the right behaviors will take us a long, long way. I think there's good things coming for the planet. Definitely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Completely agree. Thank you, Ian, for joining us today. Cindy and then Mart.
Thank you so much, Nick. I think cultivating belonging is something that we can really, that I take away from this session and that we can all do more of, because inclusivity goes beyond mere tolerance. It's about really cultivating a sense of belonging for all members of the organization. Yes, open communication, cross-cultural communication, empathetic listening, really understanding, holding space for people and creating space where people feel safe, heard and supported.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Cindy. I love that idea about cultivation. Might use that again as a theme in the future. I appreciate that. Mart and then Sarah.
Nick, what another great show again. Great questions, by the way, and fantastic answers. I think worthwhile watching again. See if this quote makes the top, Nick. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice. And belonging is having that voice be heard.
There you go. It takes it one step further, you see. So we've moved from the world of rock and roll, light entertainment, dance, and now we're actually being heard as well. So fantastic. Thank you, panel. Sarah, your thoughts, please.
Thank you again to everybody that's joined us live today and those that will look after. Great panel as always. And I just strive for the world to be a better place. That's what I always just think about. And also for those that, that I hold dear to me, I want the world to be a better place for when they're going to be growing into it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. And you do a great job of that, by the way, day in, day out, week in, week out. I can attest to that. Malini, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me as part of this conversation on such an auspicious day. And I would like to thank everyone for the beautiful questions. They were really thought-provoking. And for anyone who's interested, look out for a short video that I will be posting next week with my thoughts on blind recruitment, which has now suddenly become very the in thing for inclusion. And I have some strong views about it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll follow you along. And if you're not connected with Malini on LinkedIn, or you're not got her in your influencer list and you're a follower of hers, I do recommend it. She posts some really thought-provoking content. So thank you very much indeed. Very insightful content as well, Malini. We appreciate that. Charlotte, your reflections on today.
Thanks, Nick. Some of you may know that I'm a big Formula One fan, and Formula One is very inclusive, apart from females and women. However, with the thanks to Susie Wolf, we're changing that in today's world. One thing that I would like to ask for is for more females to join us on Level Up as panelists. We've got a very low number of female panelists that have been registered for this series. So if you'd like to join us, please click the link and register as a panelist. It'd be great to have more females on the show. Thank you to all our panelists and our viewers.
Thank you very much indeed. I totally agree with that. And a good big shout out on International Women's Day for having more gender balance on our panels. I know the talent management team do a really good job actually in trying to select a diverse and inclusive group of experts as it is possible. But it is often driven by the pool of people who have availability on that particular day and that at that particular time. So it would be great to have more folks in that pool. I totally agree. Thank you very much to our producers, everybody online today, for your brilliant questions. You really do drive the show, and do watch out for your name in the credits if your question was selected. And on behalf of our producers panel, thank you for giving your time so generously. We really do appreciate it. Now then, over on the APMG website, you can search for the answers to more than 2,300 previously asked questions from the Level Up series and other podcasts and interviews and so on. It's totally free of charge, and it connects you with more than 300 experts from around the world. Don't forget that you may also listen to the audio versions of each of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. And they are really brilliant, actually. If you're out for a walk, it's a really lovely way to consume the content. Now, coming up next week, Monday, the 11th of March at 8 a.m., we're going to be looking at how to get hired and build your career. So whether you're looking for that internal promotion or an external change, do tune into that. Friday the 15th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon UK time, we're going to focus on collaboration. So that's another key topic, I think, for building a better future. And then Monday the 18th, we're going to return to look at how to become a trainer, a most popular, and as you've heard today from the panelists, a very rewarding career choice. Don't forget, head over to the YouTube channel and do give this video a like and consider subscribing. We really do appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps other folks discover the content as well. Write to us and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up next and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.